Organissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today at www.organissima.com. Organissima, New York. Your beauty is our duty. Organissima, New York.
Welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, with your host, Hurricane H. As always, a new guest, a new topic, a new day, and a lot of new information. And, over the months, I've been reading things and also even getting some questions about, health when it comes to menopause and postmenopause. I did have a show before, and we've covered a lot of grounds there, but we didn't talk so much about the nutrition and the approach about it and things like that. And today I have with me actually a specialist who will cover those things and beyond. And she will really give us a little bit of true insights about how to deal with all this, the pre, the post, and how to, even stay healthier as we age, and specifically for women, but it could be also tips that can be for men as well. So with that, I will just introduce our guest. So Dr. Leslie Kasanoff, and she is actually, by practice, a lot of things, a lot of expertise. She is a doctor. She's been a holistic chiropractor. She is also a lab science, person. She's done a lot of work there, and she's also a health coach and teaches and helps people lead a healthy diet and a healthy practice and lifestyle, so they can enjoy life as they age, in beauty and all that good stuff, right? So Doctor, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing great, thanks.
All right. Well, listen, I'm glad to have you on the show. I'm sure our audiences here will enjoy our time and a lot of the stuff that you're going to bring about. And so first things first. I mean, I always start with asking you to tell us a little bit about your journey, your story, and your background. I mean, really, just to give people. I try to introduce, but obviously, it never does justice, right?
Sure. Yeah, I got it. So I basically started out, as you sort of indicate, as a medical lab scientist. And when I was actually at the very end of my internship in that 5-year program, one of the very last things that I had to do was I had to assist at the bedside for a bone marrow biopsy. And as I walked into the room, I found this little old lady laying in the bed who, to my 22-year-old eyes, looked like she must have been 110. And I don't know how old she really was, but that was the impression I got. And later found out they were basically doing this bone marrow biopsy to confirm a diagnosis of leukemia. And it was just a harrowing experience. It was, they used basically a large blunt-ended needle to force into the bone, and just and they don't anesthetize, because it's a short procedure. So, just blood curdling screams that sucked all the energy out of the room. Just horrible experience. They finally got, the doctor finally got the sample, handed it to me. I made the microscope slides and got the heck out of the room as quick as I could. But the thing that happened that changed my life forever was not what happened in that room. It's what happened when I got back into the lab, and I handed that sample to the senior tech, and I told her about this little old lady, and she looked at me with these sad eyes, and she said, "But Leslie, they don't even treat leukemia in patients that old." And just instantaneously, this light bulb went on, and it was like, what the hell am I doing here? And
Leslie,
Yeah.
Doctor, I'm literally in shock. I mean, first of all,
Yeah.
I felt that pain, just the
Yeah.
way you described it.
Yeah.
For
It
everybody
was like,
hearing,
and every time I tell the story, I still feel it, you know?
seriously, oof.
Yeah. I was like, what the hell am I doing here? And then just as instantaneously, the realization that in that position or any position that I could ever hope to grow to from there, from where I was, I would be powerless to ever have any effect on that paradigm. And so that's when I realized that I needed to be on the other side of the fence, so to speak, to help prevent people from having to get into that hospital bed in the first place. And so that's basically what I've dedicated the rest of my life to. So, so I became a chiropractor, did the holistic chiropractic practice for about 25 years and had some great successes in there, but also started to see where I wanted to go further or take a little bit of a different approach. And that, together with my own experience going through the whole perimenopause thing, kind of brought me into a different category. So, when I went through all that, and I ended up listening to a colleague's recommendations and going on bioidentical hormones. And 2 months later, I found myself 20 pounds heavier. I was like, wait a minute, there's got to be a different solution here. Wow. I'm not going to walk around weighing 200 pounds. It just isn't going to happen. So that's when I quit the hormones, went down that tunnel and said, well, okay, how do I do this on my own? And I figured the whole thing out, between the diet effect on hormones and all that, and basically brought that back into my own ability to be able to control that, get the weight off, and then start incorporating that into what I was teaching with my chiropractic clients. And then slowly but surely started to evolve into more coaching and consulting. And
nice.
Kids moved on, decided I didn't need to be in an office 9 to 5 anymore. And so this was, an easy transition.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, thank you for sharing that. But I think in this brief intro, you've covered a lot of different topics we can dissect, one by one. Well, the first one is that first experience, and I didn't think, or I don't know if people know this, but I didn't know that actually you don't get any anesthesia when you get that procedure done. I don't know if it's still the same or not, but I can tell you, even epidurals, you got to get, a little bit of anesthesia before you can get those, and they can last forever, because I know my wife had one and she still feels that pain in that same spot. So, and when somebody, and really the brutal piece is that when you go and someone tells you that, we don't even treat leukemia at that age, it's like, what does that mean, that age? That could be your mom, whoever, and one day, if we age enough, that could be us, right? So it's really like almost, it's bad. I mean, just to hear that, right?
Well, the thing for me was that if they were just doing it to name the disease, why were they, why?
Well, that was going to be my next thing. Is that
why?
The fact is, you had that person go through that pain at that age, knowing that there's going to be nothing you're going to be doing about it. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's not even humane. I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's to me, that's basically against the oath that they take. First do no harm. If you're not treating it, what good are you doing?
I don't think you want to use that approach with animals, let alone humans, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we treat animals sometimes better than that, right? I mean, it's fact, right? But it's for you as a young, inspiring person, and you're like looking at this like, wow, that's like enough is enough, right? So that's I mean, first of all, it's really like, wow. And I'm sure people are listening right now like, what the hell? I mean, really? Mm-hmm. But, people be surprised how, what things, take place out there, right?
Right.
And every day on the show, we hear some story that's kind of almost a horror story. And sadly, it's Halloween around the week. But I mean, it's almost a theme here, but it's crazy, right? But you took that, and then you went to holistic chiropractic. So explain to us what that is. I mean, I know what a chiropractic does. I mean, I love one to pop my bones and all that stuff, get it all online. I probably can use one right now. But what's the difference? The holistic piece of it, is that stand like a different aspect of chiropractic work?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So the thing of it is that chiropractic is basically about using the spine as access to the nervous system. The idea being that the nervous system controls everything in your body, and you're accessing that through the spine and the adjustment. But I also always incorporated nutrition and lifestyle and consulting with people to the extent that I could in my practice about exercise, about stress reduction, about healthy eating, about all those other things. And so I term it a holistic practice to just let people know that there was a bigger picture that I was working with rather than just popping a few bones for back pain.
Well, and I appreciate
Yeah.
that because I think that's a big difference, because the average person, and again, for example, I mentioned to you earlier, I'm in the insurance world, so we cover chiropractic based on Medicare, definition, but it's really just manipulating the spine, all the basic stuff.
Yeah.
But when you take that and you add the element of nutrition, lifestyle, stress-free mode, and mental state, and all that stuff, I think that's the holistic part, which not your standard chiropractic practice, right? It's beyond.
Right. Yeah.
And you add in that value, I think a lot of people can see, the approach and the need for it. Because to your point, there's a lot of things that probably happen to us due to stress, due to lack of good feeding or good nutrition, lifestyle, activities, how we do things, are we lounging too much? Are we, watching TV? Like right now, the dilemma that we have, the phone, I was just going to get one. I'm like, everybody's doing this. Their neck is all like curved right now, right? And it's painful. Like you got to be like this to just keep your head up, right? But that's a new trend, right? But TV, people are doing this, they slouch, they're like this, all that stuff. I mean, it's painful, and you pinch all those nerves, and it's not good. I mean, you work out, also that's the other thing. People exercise, they pinch a nerve left, whatever, hernia disc. There's so many things that can happen. I have tried chiropractic before, and it was a great experience. I mean, you feel good after you leave that office, right? Like, woo, yeah. So it's important. But I like the concept that you've added those. So you basically give like what, you identify what's been their lifestyle, and then you kind of give recommendations, and also maybe like food and nutrition things that can help them, really get better.
Exactly.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. So you went from that practice, and then you took it to the next level. Now you just coach people about how to do things better. But you mentioned something about your own personal experience.
Right.
So you reach the age of perimenopause, and now things change, right? And I know, like I said, I mentioned earlier, we had a whole show about menopause, and we can define some of the things. But in your experience, obviously, we always think mood swings and maybe gain weight, hormonal stuff, and a lot of people go to hormone treatment, right? It's like a hormone this, the other one, and you just said it yourself. You did that, and then you end up gaining a lot of weight. Not a good thing. I mean, on your knees, on your body, it's not a cool thing. So you realize that. How long did it take you before you actually kind of like, whoa, time's up?
Well, like I said, I gained 20 pounds in 2 months. And having come from my own personal background, where my mother gained a lot of weight in midlife and then struggled, she was never thin to begin with, but she also gained, 40, 50 pounds in midlife. It was like, I'm not going there. I was always in decent shape, and I planned to and have remained in decent shape. So I just wasn't going there. And so after about 2 to 3 months, I basically got off of the hormones. I kind of backed off of them and said, there's got to be a different way. And I started investigating. And the thing that I basically hit upon that most people don't get is that we have some big sources of hormone imbalances that are on the end of our fork, meaning meaning mostly the animal foods that we eat, and especially dairy, because when you think about it, dairy comes from a cow, a usually pregnant cow, and you're basically taking in both, for lack of a better term, you're consuming concentrated bovine growth fluid, and you're consuming you're consuming growth fluid that's designed to turn a 40-pound calf into a 1,000-pound cow in a year. So when you think about it in those terms, and then you think about the fact that on top of that, you're eating that as cheese, which is concentrating that for a large part of the dairy that you're consuming, that most Americans consume. It's like you're giving yourself, a huge influx of hormones that there's no wonder that women have trouble, that anyone has trouble with weight gain and hormone imbalance and anything like that. And you look at all the men in this society that have problems with weight gain, that have big abdomens, that, they're losing their hair because their hormones are off balance, they're growing man boobs. That's all related to hormones as well.
Well, it's funny because we see this, but sometimes we would have never put it together the way you put it, and really given us that descriptive, because you're right. I mean, milk, since younger age, people are conditioned to this, right?
Yeah.
Get cheese, drink your milk, and does your body good, all the good stuff, breakfast of champions. And you're like,
propaganda.
That's right. And you're like into it, but we don't think about where that comes from. And really, we hardly think about it, because you're right. I mean, our cows are not really just prairie cows and they just hang out there in nature. I mean, these are like, literally, developed in farms that are specifically designed to grow quickly and have mass production. And you're right. And I think that's the issue, because, and, even the meats, not just the dairy, even the meats. I mean, you get that stuff, it's all inflated.
Yeah. And even organic grass-fed dairy is still going to have a ton of hormones in it, just naturally occurring, because, like I said, it's still designed as that bovine growth fluid. Its purpose is to turn that little cow into a 1,000-pound calf in a year.
Right.
So that can't be good for 130 or 140 or 180-pound human.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about it. It does sound like crazy when you really like.
Now, here's the thing too that I mention to people. It's like, no doubt there was a time in human evolution where having that cow's milk available made the difference between life and death, because you needed a good protein source in the wintertime when there wasn't much else, and those kinds of things. So I don't fault our ancestors for having started to drink that stuff, but I do fault us now for continuing to make it such an integral part of our diet and the hazards that it's causing.
Well, doctor, I mean, that's a great point that you made here, because if we compare times, right?
Yeah.
Yes, back in the days, also the food diet that we had was different. I mean, people didn't eat as much as we do today. I'm sorry, I don't think they did. I may be wrong, but people hardly had the selection that we have today. You go to supermarkets today, I mean, forget about it. You go to a buffet. I mean, maybe the rich, and some people had festivities and they had all these things that we see in the movies with a lot of spread, and you got all your ham, your cows, whatever, your sheep, whatever, the lambs, on the rotisserie, whatever, those things we see in movies. But the fact of the matter, the average person around the world didn't have all that food available to them, and therefore they needed nutrients. They needed some source, and you could live, from milk and some, fruits and things like that, and maybe some meat. But you're right. Today, we have so many other types of food available to us instantly. Mm-hmm. And everything comes with super calories in them, and hormones and everything else. So you're just adding a lot more. And as a matter of fact, I was reading something the other day, and I saw this picture in an article that literally showed people from 100 years ago, like in early 1900 pictures on a beach versus today. and the difference in sizes, like everybody was skinny.
Yeah.
Today we have some, that actually fit and things like that because they work out and stuff. But the average person doesn't have that fit, profile, and therefore, or they're overweight, in terms of their size or age. And that's a big deal.
Exactly.
And you're right. I mean, it's not even for women. This is men and women together. We are on the same boat here when it comes to the hormones. Yes, it may be more difficult maybe for women, especially in that time of menopause. But I think even men has the same issues. We lose hair, you get that nice belly. Man boobs, forget about it. That's they don't look that good anyways, but you're right. It's a pain.
And I've read some interesting theories about about our evolution and the Paleolithic diet and that kind of thing too. And and there's actually some pretty significant evidence that the Paleolithic diet wasn't anywhere near what the paleos would like us to think it was. The Paleolithic diet, people actually consumed about 100 grams of fiber a day. The average American now consumes about 15 to 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
So difference.
Yeah. So they consumed up to 100 grams of fiber a day. And, and you think about that. And there's also estimates that they were gathering food 15, 16, 18 hours a day.
Which means they were very active.
Right. They were very active.
And we're really, couch potatoes.
And then you add to that the fact that we didn't really have, we didn't have equipment in terms of killing animals like we think of, they were hunter-gatherers, but they did a lot more gathering than they did hunting.
Well, yeah. But again, I mean, even we could talk even a couple centuries or whatever, but you're right. Yeah. Over the ages, things have changed, drastically. And right now the technology is making everything more easier, accessible, and it makes us lazier and lazier. I mean, even just generation to generation, we used to do more activities outdoors than now. I mean, we're sit in front of computers and screens, and at work, everything's comfortable, and you're just okay. And then while you're sitting there, you feel like the munchies, and you just keep crunching on things.
Right. And then our bodies, because of evolution, were designed to be attracted to the fat and the sugar because that's the calorie-rich stuff that we were trying to get. And so now we've just flipped that whole thing upside down because the industries have just made it so that everything has fat and sugar in it, whether it's good for you or not. Well, which is why the first thing that I tell people is get all that processed food out of your diet and go back to eating real food.
Well, let's talk about that, because I know you made the commitment to yourself and you started changing, and obviously it worked. And then you took that to the next stage, which is sharing with people, and made that your life, motivation, right? So you're doing that. Now you just mentioned key, real food. Real food as in whole grain, or not even whole food, and or plant-based. So I know you talk a lot about that in your work. And also I think you also address the diabetic, concepts and diabetes people, and how to really monitor all that stuff, the gut, I guess systems, all that stuff. So let's talk about that. Let's guide us through that transition. What are your recommendations, and what would be working for people? What could be working better for people? And to your point, let's get to that 100, grams of fiber versus 15 grams.
Well, and I think the first thing with that is that for most of us, it does need to be done in stages. In other words, most people right now, they're putting a chunk of meat on their plate, and they're putting maybe a vegetable and maybe, potatoes or white rice or something like that. That's kind of typical American diet. So the first thing I tell people is, take that chunk of meat and cut it in thirds. Put the other 2/3 away for 2 other days. Add another vegetable. Swap out that white processed carbo or whatever it is, if it's just a white potato, that's one thing, but it's usually a white potato that's slathered with butter and sour cream and all that other stuff that you don't need. So substitute a sweet potato for it, substitute some brown rice for it, substitute some quinoa, some squash, start thinking in terms of some beans, start thinking in terms of other carbos that are going to fill you up more and give you more of a variety, and start with that and then increase it from there.
I like the way you did it. I mean, you just, what you already have, you just kind of switch the quantities around, and that's a good start.
Yeah.
Also, the concept that you're talking about, gradual, transformation and change, because if you do it instantly, you're not going to do it. There's no way for you to just overnight turn off the switch, right?
Right.
I think it's going to take some adjustment for your body as well and your mindset. And
exactly.
But you're right. One of the things that you mentioned is that all the extra stuff we put on our food. And boy, there's a lot of it. I mean, it's funny, from sauces to mayo, and a lot of that stuff is really not as natural as it can get. And then you have all the other additives and addictives.
Right.
It's crazy, but you have all that stuff in there.
Right. Now here's another thing. You can substitute things pretty readily that are going to give your food a whole lot more flavor. Like instead of that, instead of the potato or the rice or something, you could still do a potato, but instead of loading it up with butter and sour cream, take that potato and put some sauteed mushrooms or some salsa or something that's going to give it more flavor.
I like that.
So, some steamed broccoli and some sauteed mushrooms, or any of that kind of stuff. Anything that's going to give it a little bit more variety, a little bit more flavor. So that's one thing that you can do. And and you think of things like when I mentioned sweet potatoes, people are used to having sweet potatoes with sweet stuff, which you can do. And you can also do that naturally, like you can bake it with dried fruit or that kind of thing. That's one option. But you can also make sweet potatoes savory, and it actually comes out really tasty.
Well, I mean, that I love that stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing is that some people may be listening right now, like, well, I like my extra sauces and all my dressings and all my dips and all that stuff. Which basically, do you even need them? I mean, to your point, it's a flavor thing. Because you want to get that extra little, sensation. But at the end of the day, do you really need that? I mean, you have your core meal and then you add all this extra. And some of that stuff is loaded with extra calories and fat and all the bad stuff, right? And by the way, I mean, it is available. People like it, and we're not against, I'm not telling people you can't have it. That's a choice. But at the same time, we make choices based on our needs, right? And when you see yourself not in a healthy place, you can't move, you can't even tie your shoes. I mean, that's a problem. I mean, your belly is getting in the way. You can't stretch, you can't run for I don't know, 100 feet. That's a problem. You walk up the stairs and you're like, oh my God, I can't breathe. Then there's a problem. So you have to adjust. And I think for people that are listening, this is purely health. Well, it's all you, right? It's your fitness, it's your wellness. You got to make it work.
Yeah.
And
exactly. And and the thing that I like to point out to people is, I used to get into these conversations when I was in chiropractic practice with my patients, and I would ask them, if you keep going at the rate that you're going, what do you feel like your life is really going to look like 30 years from now? And I would get responses like, well, I don't know that I want to be here 30 years from now. And my response to that would be, how much choice do you really have? In other words, what we do see in kind of the bigger picture is that, to a large extent, our genetics will determine how long we live, but they will not determine how well we live. Okay? So I know I've got 3 of my 4 grandparents lived to be actually two of my four grandparents lived to be over 90. Okay. One lived to be over 80. The other one I don't count because he got mustard gassed in World War I.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So I got some longevity there. So I know that I have the potential to likely live a long life. Now, how I live is going to determine whether or not that long life is going to be healthy or if I'm going to be suffering those last 10 to 15 years. And you bet your ass that I don't plan on suffering a day.
Well, doctor, it's a very good point you're making there. And so the answer that person, people would give you, obviously, it's not what they really want. That's what they want to put as a barrier, right? Like, okay, this is me. You're not going to change my mind. I don't want to live there. You know what? To your point, you don't choose how long you're going to live. I mean, unless you terminate your life, which is bad, but the average person listening to this is not going to do. Exactly. So the point is, you're going to live for as long as your body continues to live. And the problem is, are you going to live healthy and feel good about your aging? And even your aging will age, gracefully and nicely, and you can still do things and maybe you have grandkids, you want to play with them, enjoy life, travel around. Or you can just be literally in a wheelchair, not able to do much and just kind of regret every single decision you made in your life. Yeah. But, it's funny because when you meet with younger people, you see that I think with age comes wisdom here. and the younger people they think they're invisible. I was there, I've been there. And I know at a certain point, you're like, I don't care. I got this. I can never think that my body is going to start giving up on me at a certain point. And what I notice every decade, it does give up a little bit more on
exactly.
you. Slowly but surely, you start losing some of those capabilities. I mean, you try to maintain, but it's not always up to you. But you're right. The healthy choices or the bad choices we make can make a difference. Mm-hmm. And making commitments to yourself. I mean, really, as I mentioned, as briefly, health is wealth here, or health wealth. They all together. I mean, your wealth is really the best wealth you have is your health. I mean,
exactly.
Because without it, it's nothing, right? And we hear that expression all the time. But so if you don't take care of yourself today and keep up, I mean, I tell this to my mother. I mean, she's in the 80s and she's diabetic. She's been living with diabetes for years. And I keep telling her, like, the last 5 years, you haven't been active. And so you gain more weight and stuff. And it's only going to get worse unless you make a difference today or start making some moves. And the moves are, you need to work out. You need to at least walk. I'm not saying go actively, but take some walking, and things like that. And now the heart is actually in the play. So the heart is not as, healthy as it used to be. So now you cannot do a lot of walking. So now it's almost like one is worse, like, which one is actually causing more problems. But that's actually an advice. I try to work with my mom on this, but everybody listening, I'm sure you have somebody in your family that or friends or whatever that may be experiencing this with their parents or grandparents. But know that if we age and if we do live long enough, you will experience some of those unless you make those choices today and make the difference. And yes, some people can tell you have this argument all the time. Oh, I know so-and-so, he was drinking, she was doing this, and lived forever. I mean, yes, maybe 1% of people may have genetic, phenomena and they can live that long without any problems. Or it could be just smoke screens. I mean, boom.
Yeah. and what I would say to that is that that's a very, very small percentage of people. And you're much more likely to live a healthier life and to be able to do the things that you want throughout your entire life if you pay attention. And you do want to think in general terms that everything that you eat is either investing in your wellness or contributing towards your sickness.
I love that. That's we got to take that as a definition.
Yeah.
So, but it's funny because, we hear all this about, say I'm in the space of managed care with Medicare, right? So I work with seniors all the time. And, as a health plan, I mean, we do a lot of work, to keep people healthier. And obviously as an insurance, you want people to have low risk and you keep them as healthy as you can, right? But when you think about that, right, you realize that even retirement now, is getting at a later age. And, if you gonna plan to work your life until that retirement age, 67, I think that's the time frame right now. And some people even work even longer. You're at that point and you want to live a little bit longer and have, time to vacation and travel around the world. Because a lot of us, may think that's the time to do this. which I'm not a big fan of that formula. I mean, you live your life as you live, right? You try to,
Right.
you can't just be work, and the next thing you know, you wait until that time and you think you're going to enjoy life, because it's going to be a little harder to do things. but that's the problem. So we wait for that point, and then if you're not healthy, what's going to happen at that point? You're not going to be able to move, to do things.
Right.
You're just going to be like literally at a doctor's office, 3 times a week, popping a lot of pills. And that's not something you want. And to your point, holistically, if you look at it from any type of shows that we've done about, nutrition and things, it leads to the same discussion, which is exactly what we're talking about here. Invest in it now, change your habits, your lifestyle has to be shifted. And despite what's around us, I mean, yes, we are surrounded with marketing and suggestive stuff, everywhere you go, there's food. Everywhere you go, there's food. I mean, it is what it is. And it's not always your best healthy food, right? So I know you focus on the concept of diabetes as well. So let's talk about that, like the whole food concept with prevention of diabetes, or at least, getting people to live with it. I mean, that's a dear topic of, to my heart, because I always want to know more about it.
Well, one of the things about that is that, and this may come as a surprise to you, because I don't know how much you've been keeping up on this literature, but it's now pretty well understood that high blood sugar is just a symptom in diabetes, that it's not ultimately the problem. And the problem is actually too much fat in the cells that doesn't allow the insulin to do its job properly. So it's kind of a little bit different than what most people think of it as, because typically when you talk to people who have diabetes, they're carb counting and they're trying to keep away from carbohydrates, and they're told to only eat 2 pieces of fruit a day and all that kind of stuff. But the thing of it is, if you take the average person with type 2 diabetes and you switch them to a whole food, low fat diet, so you increase you increase the complex carbos, the whole grains, the quinoa, the brown rice, the barley, all the beans, all that stuff. You get them eating whole fruit. You get them off of all their pastries and garbage, okay? And they can typically bring their A1C levels down into normal range in a couple of months, sometimes quicker. Yeah.
But I started actually reading some articles about it, and you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole new wave of studies about how the fat is what stops the insulin from processing correctly and things like that. And that is a new thing, because to your point, we've always been conditioned to no sugar, limit your how many toasts you get a day, whatever, and substitute things. But you're right. I mean, that is a big, almost breakthrough in terms of what diabetes is.
Yes and no. I'm actually going to correct you on that one.
Go ahead. It probably existed. It just
because
wasn't.
There are studies going all the way back to the 1930s on feeding people high carbohydrate, low fat diets to cure diabetes.
Well, so now we're going to get into politics because there's got to be a reason why these things haven't been, ultimately, and I'm just being funny about it, but
yeah,
you're right. I mean,
yeah, it's the easy way.
But exactly, it's the easy way, and also there's other reasons for that. I mean, if we cure diabetes, that's another story. Right? I'm not even gonna go there, but you know what I mean. I guess people are listening. They're like, "We got your drift, right?" So, but the fact is, some I guess illnesses are just managed as opposed to cured, and because there's a reason for that, right? And
exactly,
we can leave the politics to their folks,
Yeah,
there's other channels for that one.
and it sounds like you're a little bit familiar with some of the people in the industry. So, Dr. Neil Barnard, who has done some studies on this, talks about the fact that his dad was actually a medical doctor who treated diabetes, only he never got anybody better treating diabetes the traditional way. Well, Neil actually manages to reverse diabetes in the vast number of his patients because he's approaching it from the whole food plant-based model.
And you're right. I mean, listen,
Yeah.
this is, I think it's beyond even the 1900s. I mean, when
Yeah.
you're looking at traditional, Eastern medicine, and Chinese medicine, herbs, for example, have been used for the longest, to treat, diabetes is not new. I mean, it's existed for centuries.
Right. Yeah.
Obviously with this century, it's a lot more, well, this century, I mean, we're already in the 21st. time flies, we're having fun, right? So I mean, in the last century and a half, whatever, we've had a lot more of an impact or increase, a spike, because of everything we eat now has sugar. I mean, back in the days, you will have sugar, but it will be limited. Now, maybe a pastry or homemade cookies and stuff. Now it's everything is in a box and loaded with extra stuff, probably not needed, right? And then we
Right.
instead of having one cookie, we take the whole box. Our kids these days, they just go through the whole box in an hour or half hour. That's sad, right? And that's the fact, right? And then, like a good doctor, a friend of mine, he had told me this, and he explained this very simply. He said, your pancreas is designed to live your life with you. And there's two ways to go about this. You can either allow it to get enough insulin as it's designed throughout the concept of the lifetime that it's designed for, or you can just upload it in the first 20 and destroy it, and you have none left for the rest of it. I mean, that's kind of like a way to describe it. The way he made it, it was so simple in terms of like, hello, it's like a car, right? I mean, you drive your car a few miles here, you take care of it, it lasts longer, it looks nicer, even if it lasts. I mean, I've seen some cars that are 100 years that look nice, and they were not actually, spruced up. They just, the people had them and they kept them. And it's the same thing with the body, right? You maintain it correctly, you give it enough, you don't abuse it, it's gonna be good. And that's his analogy, but it was like, oh, that's simple. I can dig that, right? It's easier. But you're right. So now let's talk about, we talked about the nutrition part, we talked about the whole food, the plant-based, the substitution. But now people will question this. Well, exercise. How do we do about that? Do I have to do exercise? How much exercise? Do I even need exercise? I don't like to exercise. What kind of exercise works for me? Because that's a big deal, right? So what do you tell people?
Well, first of all, I remind people, or I tell people, that there are over 600 muscles in the human body. So to me, that says our bodies were made to move. It just right. Does. And so you have to move your body. And you think about, like I said, back to our hunter-gatherer ancestors, they were moving 16 to 20 hours a day. So sitting on the couch all day, we call sitting the new smoking, because it's as hazardous to our health as smoking once was.
That's a great analogy, and I haven't heard that before, but but I love it. I love it. I'm sure people will be like, "Damn, that makes sense," because it is becoming a habit, and a lot of people did a lot of work, physical work. Now we don't do much of it. I mean, now with computers, you don't have to type anymore. You can just talk and it types for you, right? So I mean, even our fingers and nails.
And how much energy does this take?
Exactly. So imagine that. I mean, I try to be a little funny here, but people can see this. I mean, the fact is, we're just getting lazier and lazier and lazier. And everything is making it for us to be as convenient and comfortable as possible, and we do less. Now, it's so much that in some offices now they have these what do they call those, the stand-up desks, whatever, you have to stand to work, because really people just cannot stand like for 8 hours and sit in 8 hours and just being typing stuff, right? Or in front of the computer. That's actually the difference between today and back in the days, right? You had a little bit of, I guess, difference in activities. We don't have that now.
I think that's a big part of it. And I also, one of the things that I always encourage people, when I was in chiropractic practice, I saw younger people too. And I would always encourage them, find something that you enjoy doing that's active, whether, even if it's just going out for a stroll with your kids and your spouse at the end of the evening after dinner or something. Find something that you enjoy doing that's active or at least moderately active, and incorporate it into your lifestyle so that you're doing it on a regular basis. And at least you're getting that much more that you're doing now than you would otherwise be doing because you're establishing that habit.
Listen, I think that's a great advice because people sometimes are just conditioned. If I don't go to the gym, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna do anything, right? And you're right. Sometimes you can do things with the family. You can walk around, and I mean, and this pandemic has shown that. I mean, a lot of people were locked in their homes, and some are luckier than others. They were able to walk around, and I mean, the outdoors was open, so you can still go out and do some walking, right? And some people got into the habit of doing that. I mean, in my neighborhood, everybody was walking.
Exactly.
Literally, I mean, obviously they had time, but certainly people were like, I some people were walking 2-3 times a day, just going around the neighborhood, just stretching. Every day they were doing it. So
and people have taken some of that to heart. I'm a bicyclist. That's one of the ways I get most of my exercise. And since the pandemic, bicycling has become a huge thing. It is really, really hard to get bicycles or bicycle parts or any of that stuff like worldwide, because everybody has jumped on the bandwagon about cycling. And it's great.
I was going to tell you, like, you can't find one, even if you wanted it. I mean, now they're starting to pop up, but there was a time you couldn't find it anywhere, and those that were like online, like some people were selling theirs, they were asking for some crazy pricing, right? It's amazing. Yeah. But you're right. It's a complete, workout. You can check out scenery, and it's outdoors, and you can enjoy it. I mean, listen, there's always a way. Yeah. I think if we want to be active and healthy, sometimes I joke with my mom. I'm like, you don't have to be doing anything. And this is true story. I actually bought her one of those feet pedals, so you can literally, it's like a bike thing, but you just sit on your chair and you do it, because she can't do anything anymore. So I want her to do that. So basically she's sitting just like on a regular gym bike, and now she's doing her thing,
Good.
but
Is she doing it?
She's starting, yes. And you can even move it and work with your arms, but at least if you can't do it outdoors, you can do something, but you cannot just be, idle and not doing anything. You can be standing watching TV and doing exercise. I mean, there's nothing. You can watch a movie and just bouncing, right? The key is you can't just stop. You stop and it's over. And then if you watch your food and you do everything by the book, there's a good chance you can live that healthy life for as long as you can maintain it. And again, we do get lazy. And I think, I'm going to ask you about that. So what do you tell people? I mean, because laziness, I think sometimes people get tired, even from a routine, and any routine, whether it's a good routine or bad routine. And so sometimes, you get that like, you know what? How long can I keep up with this, right? And then you give up for a minute.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is about looking down the road and, what's your commitment in life 10, 20, 30 years from now? One of the things that, if you look at like the blue zone regions, and I know you're familiar with that term, the five areas in the world where people still live healthfully into their 80s, 90s, and beyond. If you look at those regions, one of the things that they do that we have started to neglect in the Western world is that they continue to work in their communities, they continue to evolve, they continue to have ideas for what they want their life to look like, into the future. They continue to make new goals and participate with their societies and things like that. And those are a lot of the things that we don't do as well in the Western world. We have a tendency to house our seniors, someplace where we don't see them, and they have such a wealth of knowledge that they could, that they have to give to us if we allowed that. And at the same time, we want to encourage our seniors to maintain that. So that's a whole other part of it, is it has to be that holistic approach where you're thinking about, what do I want life to look like 10, 20, 30 years from now?
Well, I think that's a core element that
Yeah.
each and every one of us should really ask that
Yeah.
question. What would be my formula for the next 30? And I mean,
Yeah.
it depends on what age you're in. I mean, if you're way early in the 20s, you might think maybe 50 years or even 20 or 30 at a click. But at the end of the day, you want to project that and set
Yeah.
those goals. And you've touched on something I was going to ask earlier, which is, we talk about the Western, we talk about the US primarily, but when you go even to Europe, right? Their lifestyles are different. You go to the East, it's even more different, and it keeps changing. So their foods are different, their diets are different, their activities are that they have lesser of a stress environment than we have here. So you have a lot of different things, and we've created these environments for ourselves.
Exactly.
Because it's all about business. Yeah, we want to be the best. We want to be number one. We were at a certain point number one in a lot of areas, but I think we've lost that actual rhythm, right? And a lot of other, we traveled to Spain, for example. I mean, it happened to me. I wound up there at a siesta time. We couldn't even get a rental car. We had it booked, but we had to wait for like 2 hours or whatever. I forgot, about 3 hours before they opened just to pick up a car. And why? Because they were not working. They were resting.
Right.
That's
Right.
it. There's time out, right? And then at night, they were all alive. They were like, everybody was outside in the streets having a good time. And throughout Europe, you see a lot more of that. And then you go further east, you see a lot. I mean, Turkey, and you keep going. I mean, it just gets a lot more festive and more active.
Yeah.
And those are just lifestyles changes. And I mean, maybe it's cultural. And the sad thing is, like, we're in the US. I mean, we are multicultural. I mean, really, I mean, you're in California, I'm in the East Coast. I mean, it's pretty diversified. I mean, you name it, you have it. Any foods, any cultures, any festivals, you can have it around here, right? Plus, I mean, in the big cities, you can do walking. Maybe in the suburbs, it's hard, but you can bike. You can take walks, and I mean, you can go to trails and whatever. But if you go to the city, you can walk 10, 15 blocks without even knowing that you did, because you're looking at shops, you're doing stuff. You can go to the mall and just walk. I mean, there's a program we used to do, and we still do actually, and it's called Mall Walkers. So our seniors basically, in the morning before the mall opens up, we give them, we authorization, permission, and the mall, we work, as a plan. And these people come in, they walk all around the mall for about a half hour to 45 minutes, and then we have breakfast for them, and it's fun stuff.
Yeah.
And the mall is empty, big.
Yeah.
They can do a lot of walking in there, and it's also, the AC is on, the heat is on, depending on the season. So it's very, very comfortable. There are things that can be done.
Right.
But do we want them? That's the question, I think.
Yeah. And I think the thing of it is that we have to think in terms, like I said, of what's our life going to be like? If you want to be able to do those things, 10, 20 years from now, you need to keep doing them on a regular basis. So, even if it's just walking the mall with your friend, if that gives you enough exercise that you can continue doing that, you do that, then you do a little bit of stretching, you do a little bit of strengthening, you do a tiny bit of core work once in a while. And you can incorporate that into part of a lifestyle that's going to keep you fit.
Listen, that is the formula, but you added something actually important in that little formula. You know what it is? A friend, somebody to do it with. See, that's the other part. We're not alone in this world. I mean, even if you were, a lonely child, whatever, you do have people in your circles. Pick the ones that have similar, I guess they have the same trends and they like the same things, and match up, work it. I mean, it could be a spouse, it could be a friend, it could be a family member, your kids, enjoy your kids, have fun with them, grandkids if you have to, but do it, just find somebody that can see the same, positive, angles that you have, and work together towards the same goal, for you and for them. And I think that's a big deal, because we're not alone in this world, and we can capitalize on who's around us. And I'm sure you'll find someone in your circles, and you can just, hey, let's create a walkers, a crew or a group or a club or whatever. I mean, we have bikers clubs, walkers clubs. Let's do it.
Well, and the thing about that is that if you know that you're meeting your friend at the track or at the mall or at the whatever, you're going to be there even on the mornings when you might not want to be, because they're depending on you.
Exactly. You have
Yeah.
a reason now. You have some, because if you're doing it by yourself, you do get lazy.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's another day. Tomorrow's another day. And that's the other thing. We have to have the I guess consistency is key. You have to
Yeah.
have determination. You cannot just kind of like give up, easily on your own, because at the end of the day, the only one that's going to suffer is, it's almost a catch 22, as I say, right? It's the 22, right? Correct. I have this whole thing with 22 and 20, but the concept is, if you don't, it gets worse.
Yeah, exactly.
And as it gets worse, you just cannot come out of it.
Yeah.
It becomes harder to come out of it. So do it better and stay in it. That's it. That's the only way to do it. Don't even hesitate.
And I think the thing of it is establish those habits. And there's a little saying that goes something like, commitment is doing what you said you would do long after the mood that you said you would do it in has gone.
Like that. So now we have it, and we have the signature on the show. So this is going to have to go viral. Well, listen, I mean, we can have, there's so much stuff that we can talk about today. But I wanted just to, as we coming up to the end of the hour, I wanted you to maybe just give us a full picture of like your ideal program, like, what you would put someone right now if they're listening. And also I wanted you to talk about how they can reach out to you, and maybe how you can help them, and resources that you might have for people.
Sure. So, I do tend to gravitate mostly towards working with women 40 and over.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's surrounding the perimenopause thing, but sometimes it's just around a chronic health problem. Maybe it's diabetes, maybe it's, some other problem. And I tend to work, it's a full concept. So it's not just the diet. It also involves, we mentioned a little bit about the hormones. There's a lot more hormones in there that we didn't have a chance to talk about. So it's about the diet, the gut microbiome, the environment, their exercise. It involves all of that together as a package. And basically, typically it's like a one-on-one coaching consulting program where we set some goals and we help them achieve those goals. So moving them more towards plant-based and getting them to a healthier lifestyle, all dependent on what they want.
Yep.
And within that, like I said, it's basically I do concentrate a lot more on the women's issues, but it doesn't necessarily need to be just that.
All right. Well, so someone say, I mean, you're in the West Coast, and maybe, it's different there. Some people will argue that, right? Is that, like plant-based, right? It should be accessible across everybody's, right? I mean, everybody has some sort of plant-based opportunity that's not too far away, right?
Sure.
All the stuff that you do is attainable. It's available wherever they are.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that you do this now via Zoom and remotely as
exactly
the last 2 years have been, right?
Yeah.
So it hasn't limited your abilities to reach out and have to help people across different states and
I
even
think
nations.
if anything, the pandemic has increased that, because people are now looking at other opportunities in other places because they don't have to be so localized.
All right. Well, again, that's great, because I think people can benefit from your services, and definitely from your experience and your formula, because you have that whole holistic combined combination of things that you actually add to their lifestyle and guide them. And if they do, I guess, follow it, what will be their time frame? How long will it take for someone, for example, to start really seeing results using your approach?
I think it depends a lot on what the problem is, and on how fast and how far they're willing and want to go. In other words, somebody that has, say, type 2 diabetes and is committed to getting off the metformin and making some real positive changes quickly, we can typically get them seeing achievable results in a couple of months.
That's everybody's dream, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you can live. I mean, a couple of months will go fast. I mean,
Yeah.
listen, the pandemic started the other day. It's
Yeah.
almost 2 years, right? So time
Yeah.
flies. and when you're in a good pace and you can see some changes happening, and you do realize change, because when your body is transforming, you do feel the energy levels. You do feel the changes. You can see the trim. Now you can actually tie your shoes. You can dress easier. You can breathe better. So you can see this. I mean, literally a couple of pounds off and you can start seeing a difference. I can relate that. There's a point where I couldn't even bend down to actually lay that. I use that as a joke, but it was hard for me to actually really tie my shoes. And so I used to buy slip-ons, shoes, but that's like, when you think about it, that was a period of my time where I just let everything go, and I just wound up, gaining a lot of weight very quickly. And it was harder to drop that weight. Yeah. But once you start dropping the weight, you see those results. It feels great. And you feel the energy, you feel hyper, you feel also that you're more active, you can do more. So that just in itself, it's good mental state right there. Yeah. So thank you. I mean, that's great to know, because I think for people, everybody's going to determine that time frame based on the commitment, how much they put in, and whether they really apply everything that you share with them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So ultimately, now the next question is, how can they reach out to you?
Sure. I think the easiest way is probably just through my website, which is drlesliek.com.
Oh, that's easy. All right. Well, we're going to have that.
Yeah. They can sign up to get my blogs, or do it, they can contact me directly through the contact page there. That's probably just the easiest way. And that way there's only one link that we're giving people.
Perfect. So we will have the link on the description of the show. So folks, if you're listening, watching, hope you enjoyed all this and really taking it to heart. And, there's so much value here. Reach out to Dr. Leslie, and you can get, real good transformational, tips and or, success. As a matter of fact, that's what the ultimate goal would be. And again, obviously the main, focus here is women, 40 and up, but I think everybody that can reach out that may be interested in lifestyle changes and whatever can actually reach out.
Yeah.
So, Doctor, it's been great. I mean, the hour went by quick. And like I said, time flies when you're having fun, right? And, we've learned quite a bit. You shared with us a lot of, good pointers here of what we should be doing and really what we shouldn't be doing. And so I appreciate the time. Any last words that you want to, of wisdom that you want to share with the audience before we close the show?
The only thing I would say is just, take it one step at a time. Understand that as you transition, your taste transition. So it's not about depriving yourself of anything. It's just working with your body to make those transitions as you can. And your body has an amazing recuperative ability and also an amazing ability to adapt. So, so that whatever food it is that you're just dying to eat right now, you start making that transition and your taste will change.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, doctor, for those words of advice. And folks, we're going to end our show today. Thank you, doctor, for being with us. Thank you for everything. Folks, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for our next show coming up soon. And that's it. Ciao for now. Bye-bye.
Great. Bye-bye. Thanks.